I now have the great pleasure of introducing an alumni and a good friend of the College of Social Work, Patrick Garvey. Pat earned his bachelor's degree in social welfare from Florida State University in 1972 and a master's degree in public affairs from the LBJ School of Public Affairs, or a master's from the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin. In fact, that was how Pat and I first met, was on a rainy night in DC when I was associated with the LBJ School a few years ago. He began his career at the Florida Division of Family Services as a protective services officer guarding children's rights. Spent his 30-year career in public service, working with agencies in Texas and in Washington, D.C., at the General Accountability Office, the GAO, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. In Texas, Pat evaluated person power employment programs and prison educational opportunities, and served as a legislative assistant to the Comptroller General in DC. He retired in 2010 from the EPA as a program director of the largest information environmental system. Garvey's worked in 14 federal and state elections and serves as a chief judge at one of the largest precincts. Pat continues to serve his Washington, D.C. community by helping distribute food to people experiencing food insecurity and homelessness, as well as environmental cleanup projects and community special events. So in honor of his mother and fellow FSU alum, Pat recently established, along with his wife, the Margaret Garvey Graduate Scholarship. It's a new endowed fund at the College of Social Work that supports graduate students. It is also worth noting that your mom graduated raised five FSU graduates. So that in and of itself is remarkable. Pat, it's a delight to have gotten to know you and Patti better over the last couple of years, and it's my pleasure to invite you to the podium.
I'm going to recognize just one other person, Remy and Dobby and Gwen. I've gotten to meet you this last year, but one of the reasons why I always come back to Tallahassee is because I have a dear friend from 53 years ago, Dr. Nancy Turner. She was director of student affairs in the union for many, many years. I think the building was named after her, by the way. And Dr. Turner, you know we love you. But I'm naming the scholarship after my mother. Thanks for the opportunity, though, to give you some observations and some memories about her. She's 5'1", graduated from high school, married quickly, had 5 kids in 6 years. All of us graduated from Bishop Moore, the school that she worked at for 25 years, and all of us graduated from FSU. Nursing, education, art, electrical engineering, and me. My father died when I was young and left mom with 5 kids. None of us graduated yet from high school. So kind of a daunting thing. High school graduate herself, never had worked before, except as a mother, which we all know is a big, big job. But took a job as a secretary at the Catholic school in Orlando at Bishop Moore High School. She worked there for 25 years and was determined to complete my father's dream of having us all graduate from college. We're from West Virginia. Not many people were graduating from there in school there, and mother with only a high school education, it was a daunting task for her to execute at the age of 41. So I was going to talk a lot about my memories of her, and then I decided the last thing you all want to hear is about a woman who none of you had met, who is obviously near and dear to my heart, second to none to my lovely dear wife, Patricia. And instead, I decided to see if I could bring some memories about her from some of the students, staff, and faculty and friends that she knew 50 to 60 years ago from the Orlando area. I texted them all and surprisingly got responses from every one of them literally immediately. So instead of talking about my mother, about how wonderful a woman she was, instead I'm going to tell you about the memories that she had, the observations that people had about her, and how she touched their lives. So one of the first ones, and they nailed it. They nailed it better than I did, that's for sure. So we're going to explore that. One of the first ones came from a former staffer. Mrs. Garvey was the face of the school. Her commitment, dedication, and love for Bishop Moore was apparent in everything she did. She not only provided support to the principal, but she took attendance, made parental calls, led the front office, did the details on admissions, alumni, guidance, graduation, and discipline. In short, she did everything and knew everything. So, Dean Springer, next time you're looking for a staff person, try to get someone who has a wide breadth of talent. Plus, she was raising 5 kids and still did all that stuff. Another student gave me some feedback. She welcomed everyone, students, parents, visitors, staff, and teachers. She'd lend a hand whenever it was needed and would give the occasional kick in the rear end to the students when they needed it. She believed in corporal punishment, and I can attest to that. Most of all, she would put her arms around you and make you feel comfortable and welcome. That was one of Mother's absolute big trademarks. The retired CEO of Volusia County's Council on Aging knew my mom as well, and this is what she wrote. What I liked best about her was that she never made a student feel like they were intruding, even though that's exactly what they were doing. She was businesslike without being rude, authoritative without being domineering, and was relentlessly efficient. The world ran on paper in the 60s and 70s and 80s, way before computers, cell phones, and smartphones. And she moved mountains of it across her desk. So I'm gonna diverge a little bit from these memories and tell you one of the 3 quick stories. At her celebration of life, after she had already left the school for over 25 years before she passed, my wife and I were going into the Bishop Moore complex, and we saw this little man just wandering around. Pulled over the car and said, can we help you? And he said, I'm looking for Jean Garvey. She was dead. And we said, well, she's going to be honored over at the chapel. He went over there with us. And after a number of teachers talked about how intimidating she was and how she ruled the front office with an iron hand, he raised his hand and said, I'd like to speak. I said, come on up. And he said, hello, I was her mailman. Really? You're coming to a funeral of somebody who delivered the mail? He said, one of my first times coming to the route, I was so confused on the whole Bishop Moore complex. It had a boys' school, a girls' school, St. Charles Parish, St. Charles School, the athletic department, the cafeteria, the guidance council office, the convent, the bishop's house, and Morning Star for exceptional children. And he said, I was all confused because it was all the same address. He walked into the first time on the route, he walked into the front office and looked and said, "I'm a little confused." My mother looked at him and said, "Honey," actually she said, "Lovey, sit on down, give me that mail bag, let me get you a cup of coffee." For the next 19 years, he started his route by getting a cup of coffee from my mom and my mother, separating the mail for the 14 different locations on the campus. And he wanted us to say, "Thank you, Gene, for helping me out on my job." All right, now let's go back to further story. She was not a passive bystander. She was a great friend, a good listener, and willing to give guidance and counsel. One of the homecoming queens and cheerleader, she wrote, "Seriously, Mrs. Garvey was a genuine saint." No, she was not a saint. And if she was a saint, then I'm a martyr. Looking back, this is what Peggy wrote. "Looking back, I was inspired by her dedication and personal interest to the thousands of students who passed through the halls during her long tenure." Another person wrote, she always asked how you were doing, and she listened. She looked at you right in the eye and respected what you said. To put it simply, Tom wrote, she always listened, respected you, what she said, and always cared about you. This brings up another story. Again, at her celebration of life, room was packed. She'd been gone for over 25 years to the school, so we were expecting just a handful of folks. Someone came in the last pew and certainly brought his infirm mother. The young man sat in the back with his mom, and after all these teachers and staffers and a few students talked about her having ruled the front office with an iron hand, he rose his hand and said, "I'd like to say a few words." I asked him to come on up. He came to the front. He had driven in from Atlanta down to Orlando. How he found out about the service, I failed to ask him. But he said he didn't identify at all with any of the earlier remarks about Mom being such an iron hand. He said, what did he say? No. He said she was the most influential person in his life. You gotta be joking. He was brought to Bishop Moore by his father, with his father dragging him into the front office with his hand on his collar. He said, my father said he wanted to enroll. He paid tuition back then. He got into a Catholic high school. My mom saw him as a dejected, eyes cast down, chip on his shoulder student. She got up from her desk, walked around the counter, and said, another one of those moments, "Lovey, I think you need a hug." Jimmy said it was the first hug that he had received in kindness in all the years he could remember. He kept a relationship with my mom for the next 23 years. I came up to him, thanked him for his remarks, and asked him, "What year did you graduate from Bishop Moore?" He said he didn't. He got kicked out just a few months later. I kept up with my mom the next 23 years and said she was just somebody who I loved. By the way, he's now a named member of his law firm in Atlanta. So for all of us who always got the poor grades, now I'm sounding like George W. Bush, there's a chance for it. But it was that kind of kindness, loyalty, and love that my mother gave to so many. She had another person wrote, actually an FSU alumni, business school. She had a sixth sense, plus the ability to hear through the walls, like when she thought we might be getting into mischief. Well, how would you like to be her son? I never had a chance. So let me end with one more memory. I had the privilege one time, and the reason why I named the scholarship after her, I was not the brightest, and still am the dim bulb of the five of us. A little bit like Forrest Gump. And in the movie, if you recall, for those of you old enough to see Forrest Gump, he got invited to the White House, and when he met President Kennedy, he shook his hand and said, "I gotta pee." And the president laughed, and everybody, that was kind of a light moment of the movie. Well, me and my staff were invited to the White House to attend a presidential address. Not many low civil servants ever get invited to the White House, but we did. So me and my staff came in. Secret Service took us to the second row of what was then the Rose Garden. And we sat down. The president came up. Everybody stands. He talked for about 10 minutes, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember a single word that President Clinton said. But after he finished, he left the podium, walked right over, leaned over to the second row, shook my hand and said, "Hi, I'm Bill Clinton. Welcome to the White House. What's your name?" In those brief 5 seconds, I looked at him and said, "I know who you are, Mr. President, but I don't remember my name." My staff carrying Cleva leaned over and said, "This is Pat Garvey from the Environmental Protection Agency." And Clinton, the most magnetic, charismatic person, said, "I know who you are. Chelsea loves your website. Keep up the good work, and tell Carol I said hi." Carol was the administrator of EPA. I had never, ever met her yet. But I did get the chance then to call her office up and said, "The president said to say hi to Carol." So that was kind of fun. So it's really not that important for you to remember my name. I want you to remember Jean Margaret Garvey's name. My last comment, my last part of the story comes from the former chief judge of Orange County, Florida. And Fred wrote the comment, "I was somewhat scared and intimidated, particularly due to her directness and intensity. Her trademark smile will forever remind me that Jean Garvey cared for and loved all students. Now more than ever, we need more Jean Garveys." Those are my comments from the students that knew her, faculty that knew her, friends that knew her. You can take away whatever you want on those memories about her. But she listened, she cared, she absolutely loved students, and she was absolutely dedicated to higher education. She was loyal. She was a loving mom, dedicated to higher education and student welfare. So on behalf of Patti and I, we'd like to endow her a scholarship at the graduate level and hope that FSU, the College of Social Work, and you all and those students who get some financial support from that scholarship remember her as well. Thank you so much.